Neo, we've been expecting you. I'm just fucking around. Let me stop. Welcome to my channel. This is part 2 of Outwitting the Devil. If you haven't seen that one, I will leave the link in the description below. Now, if you are an entrepreneur or you're just someone that's looking to upgrade their life, then this video is for you. In part 1, I already discussed the introduction of the book Outwitting the Devil, which is written by Napoleon Hill. So I won't discuss that on this video. So I'm going to get right into the next chapter where the devil explains some of his tricks that he uses to control people. And it's a handful. So starting off with the chapter, Napoleon Hill had asked the devil, "What do you use to control people?" So the devil explained of how he used this habit of drifting to control majority of the population. A person who thinks for themselves does not drift. However, a person who doesn't think for themselves is a drifter, and this is the list that he described as a drifter. So 1, a drifter is someone who is controlled by circumstances outside of himself. So basically, an example which is self-explanatory, is maybe this person is controlled by what they see on social media, or what they see by a family member, or what they see from their peers, and they don't think for themselves. That is a drifter. 2 is kind of the same like the first 2. A drifter is someone who would rather have the devil do the thinking for him. 3, a drifter is someone who accepts whatever life is thrown at him without putting up a fight. So they just jump from job to job. Whatever gets thrown at them, that's just, it is what it is. That's a drifter. 4, 4, he has no idea what he wants out of life. So I've seen this so many times. I come across a lot of people who have no idea what they want to do in life, which is fine. But I think the problem is when you don't even bother to think of what you want to do, and you just rather take whatever life is thrown at you. That's a drifter. Okay. 5, a drifter has plenty of opinions and none of his own. Most are supplied by the devil. I've seen this so many times too. People that have all these opinions and none of it comes from themselves. It's usually what they hear off of nowadays TikTok videos. Like if I hear one more person try to give me an opinion from somebody else off of TikTok, I think I'm gonna lose my noggin. And 6, a drifter is somebody who is just plain lazy. And that is a drifter. Further into the chapter, Napoleon Hill then asks the devil, when does he start the process of getting somebody to drift? And this is what he tells Napoleon. The devil starts off by saying that he starts before the child is even born, by manipulating the parents or taking it a further step back and giving the child weak traits of his ancestors. Now, I've always heard the term, you are who your ancestors are. You are just like your ancestors. And even though that sounds pretty taboo and superstitious to some folks, I always believed in that. And turns out it's true, because the devil says that we call it, us earthbounds call it, or the scientists call it, physical hereditary. So it is proven that you do have traits that are from your ancestors. An example I can give about that, something more like, I'll give an example of something that's like more in your face that you'll understand. So, for an example, you might hear that you are just like your mom or you're just like your father. People tell me all the time that I'm just like my mother. You might even hear that you're just like your grandfather or you're just like your grandmother. And if maybe some people in your family remember the elders that have passed away, they might be like, oh, you're just like your great grandmother, you're just like your great grandfather. And in my family, I have an example of that. So, one of my aunts, she was told by a few people in the family that she is just like our great grandfather, who he was a Mexican immigrant, and not only does she have his hair, but she walks like him and everything. And this is our great grandfather, a little further back, but it's just crazy. And it's just, I would say, proof that we are just like our ancestors. So, to get back to the main topic, that is what the devil uses to start his process. So he gets us before we even come out the womb. Like, that's cheating. So after he starts the process before we are even born, he, right after that, he enters people's thoughts that they believe to be their own. And the most useful ones are fear, superstition, avarice, greed, lust, revenge, anger, vanity, and laziness. He prefers to take on the young before they can even learn how to close those 9 doors. And then from there, he also says that habits are related. So, for an example, because he did say if he could get you to drift in one area, he could get you to drift in all kinds of areas. So say like you start smoking weed. I never had weed before, so but I've heard stories of people who smoke weed, and I do see how people act when they smoke weed all the time. Like just super laid back and can be super lazy. So say like you start smoking weed, right? And through habits, you start smoking weed all the time. And then from there, you possibly may get lazy. So not only are you smoking, now you lazy. So that's a second habit that you're on. From there, if you're lazy, you possibly might not be ambitious like how you used to be, if you are even ambitious at all. So now you're not ambitious, you're just plain smoking all the time and lazy. No ambition whatsoever. From there, you could possibly get fat. So not only are you smoking all the time, you're lazy now you're gaining weight, you're overweight, and you're probably eating a lot too. So now he got you on the habit of just eating too much. That's gluttony, right? From there, to keep it all the way real, if you have a partner in your life or somebody that you're just messing around with, if you're a dude, you probably can't even get your dick up like that anymore. And if you're a girl, if you're a woman, you probably ain't getting as wet like how you used to, because now you're overweight. The blood, it's harder to have that blood flow going down there. You're not as fit like you used to be. You lazy and you smoking a lot. You're drifting in all areas. Further into the chapter, the devil tells Napoleon that he also, one of his tricks that he uses to control people is he uses parents, school teachers, religious instructors, and others to serve his purpose in getting kids to think for themselves without even knowing. And these school teachers and parents and religious instructors, they think what they're doing is correct, but they're also not teaching kids how to think for themselves. So from there, Napoleon asks the devil what other method he uses. And I did not want to write this either, so I'm going to read this to you guys. And I feel like it's important. That's why I'm going to read it. So listen closely. So Napoleon then goes and says, "Go ahead and tell me more of the methods by which you cause people to drift to hell with you." I cause people to drift on every subject through which I can control independent thought and action. Take the subject of health, for example. I cause most people to eat too much food and the wrong sort of food. This leads to indigestion and destroys the power of accurate thoughts. If the public schools and the churches taught children more about proper eating, they would do my cause damage. So, health, marriage. And I've seen this so many times. I cause men and women to drift into marriage without plan or purpose designed to convert the relationship into harmony. Here is one of my most effective methods of converting people into the habit of drifting. I cause married people to bicker and nag one another over money matters. I cause them to quarrel over the bringing up of their children. I engage them in unpleasant conversations, controversies over their intimate relationships, and in disagreements over friends and social activities. I keep them so busy finding fault with one another that they never have time to do anything else long enough to break the habit of drifting. Okay. Next one is occupation. I teach people to become drifters by causing them to drift out of school into the first job they can find, with no definite aim or purpose except to make a living. Through this, I trick and keep millions of people in fear of poverty all their lives. Through this fear, I lead them slowly but surely onward until they reach the point beyond which no individual has ever broken: the drifting habit. Savings. I cause people to spend freely and to save sparingly or not at all until I take complete control of them through their fear of poverty. Environment. I cause people to drift into inharmonious and unpleasant environments in the home, in their places of occupation, in their relationships with relatives and acquaintances, and to remain there until I claim them through the habit of drifting. Last one. Dominating thoughts. I cause people to drift into the habit of thinking negative thoughts. This leads to negative acts and involves people in controversies and fills their minds with fears, thus paving the way for me to enter and control their minds. When I move in, I do so by appealing to people through negative thoughts, which they believe to be their own. I plant the seeds of a negative thought in their minds, in the minds of people, through the pulpit, the newspapers, the moving pictures, the radio, and all other popular methods of appeal to the mind. I cause people to allow me to do their thinking for them because they are too lazy and too indifferent to think for them goddamn selves. In the next chapter or so, Napoleon does get the devil to open up of how to break the habit of drifting, but I will explain that in part 3, if not part 4. So you will have to come back for those videos. Pretty much self-explanatory to think for yourself. Watch the little things that you get into because it could lead into bigger issues. Like say like for me, for an example, I can get into scrolling from time to time. And if I don't stop and be like, this is enough, it's a wrap. I'll just be scrolling for like an hour. And we all have done that. So, and then from there, after scrolling for an hour, I might be too lazy to do certain things that I need to do, whether it's just editing my books or cleaning the apartment, cooking, whatever. And that can lead us to other habits. Next thing you know, my whole day is screwed and I'm just a drifter. So it's very important to catch the little things that may cause you to drift and think for yourself. That is the whole point. And if you can get this down, you can be successful in other aspects of your life, period, point blank.